My radio voice, I wish I could use that more. Hi everyone and welcome to Chiltern 99.5 FM. Hi everyone and welcome to Early Years Weekly number 22. This week we've got a new story from earlier on in February all about Parentese. Ruby, what's Parentese?
So Parentese is the language that parents use to speak with their little ones, or the language we want them to use. Now, across the world in all different languages, parents do change their speaking style when speaking to their children. Now, Parentese is unlike more meaningless baby talk and actually involves using real words. So the article mentions the use of banana and milk, but you say these words at a higher pitch in a happy and engaged tone. And this tends to encourage youngsters to respond with babbling.
What the research suggests is that those parents who use this kind of Parentese with elongated vowels and a higher pitch, those children actually end up having more vocabulary at the age of 18 months. So they coached some parents specifically, and those parents compared to the control group, their children had 40 more words by the time they turned 18 months. Really interesting to know, and just make sure that all of your practitioners are up on this style of language, this style of speaking that can really have a big impact on children's language attainment.
So moving on, we're going to go back to the NatCen report that we spoke about last week. And after some more digging and going beyond the kind of headline figures, we found some really interesting stuff. So there was a lot on kind of retainment and also what attracts people to the sector in the first place, which I think is really important to understand. So there was interviews from 9 different settings, and what they did was come up with 3 different personas. Now, the first thing I'd like to note is that at a time where we are trying to encourage more males into the early years sector, I was really disappointed to see that all 3 were female. That being said, I don't know if you want to kind of go into what each one is about.
Yeah, so besides the kind of shame about making all of the 3 personas female and also some pretty terrible names that you're going to have to bear with us on, I thought it was really interesting to see the way they split them up. So first of all, we have Pragmatic Petra, who entered into the sector because she didn't have so many options but was interested in childcare. And someone like this is not necessarily super highly motivated to move within the sector, but also seems quite unlikely to leave. The second persona we have is called Inspired Irene, and this is someone who maybe after starting their own family found a bit of a passion for early years care and joined the sector for that reason. Now they highlight this person as being relatively likely to make some movement within the sector and up in their career, but also highly likely to end up leaving for a different job. And then finally we have Career Claire, who kind of entered into early years because it's a real passion and sees the foundation of children's learning as just really important. And that's someone who is likely to go quite high within the sector, but also there's a chance they could leave as a result of perhaps moving to primary education or elsewhere. Thought it was really interesting to see this split, and particularly interesting to look into whether this could help understand how you recruit and retain staff. Would love to know your thoughts, so leave a comment below about whether this chimes with the kind of experience that you have of the people who are entering into your setting, or whether you think this whole idea of putting people into boxes is a little bit rubbish. So the third news story of the week is kind of the news that nothing has changed. With the big government reshuffle that happened last week, it looks like the education and early years team is going to stay pretty much roughly the same.
Yeah, so to just delve into that a little bit more, as Matt said, with all the drama around this cabinet reshuffle and Sajid Javid actually going, it seems pretty subdued for the education sector. Gavin Williamson and Nick Gibb remain as education and schools, respectively, and the full roles haven't been explained yet, but the understanding is that Nick Gibb will also remain in charge of the early years.
The only one potentially interesting change is that Vicky Ford has been promoted to Children's Minister, which in the past actually covered early years, but it's looking like that's not going to be the case this time. I think really the only 2 takeaways from this change is that, one, with a new Chancellor, could we see some changes to the plans about what comes in the budget? We've got to keep our fingers crossed around the funding and what happens there. And secondly, that perhaps it's actually good that we're not seeing too much chopping and changing, and we can have a little bit of consistent policy for the first time in quite a long time around early years.
So, ending on some light news for this week. So, there's a new Netflix documentary series coming out called Babies, and it looks to be really good. So, it follows 15 children over their first year of life and goes through their kind of major developmental milestones. So, there'll be 12 episodes, and they start this Friday, covering different topics. So, the first one being the bond between parents and babies, and the second being early years eating.
And I think it's just worth saying that it's always good to see these documentaries on platforms like Netflix to kind of raise the profile and the importance of early years. This one seems to be a really interesting mixture of first-hand experience, but also some scientific research and faces talking about what's really going on behind what you see. And I think we've seen in the past with series like The Secret Life of 4-Year-Olds and Old People's Home for 4-Year-Olds that these big profile series can really raise the important issues that also we're trying to give some credibility to within the wider kind of population. So definitely worth checking out, could learn something interesting, and hopefully we'll have lots of parents really engaged about what's going on.
Yeah, so thank you very much for listening. Please, as ever, remember to like and subscribe and leave your comments below on the news that we've spoke about this week. And we'll see you next time.